The views and opinions expressed in this podcast by the host and or the guest do not necessarily reflect the views of the host and or Paranormal Buzz Radio and or its sponsors. Use of any material produced by Paranormal Buzz Radio without express written consent is prohibited. Paranormal Buzz Radio will not be held responsible for you holding your knees, crying, and rocking in a corner in a puddle of your own urine, or being beheaded by a group of children in the cornfield. In fact, if you come across a group of children in a cornfield, we promise to make fun of you as you run away screaming in terror. Listener discretion is advised.
You're listening to REP Paranormal and Friends with your hosts,
Kim Purvis
and Allison Robinson. Make sure to check us out on our Facebook pages, REP Paranormal and Friends and REP Paranormal Busters, for up-to-date show information and events. Hey everyone, welcome to REP Paranormal and Friends. Have a special guest for you. She's an artist, writer, poet. Had worked as a nurse for 12 years and also trained to become a teacher and was an English teacher for 12 years. And not only has she done that, she's also believes that she has been encountering paranormal ETs and UFOs since she was a child, which kind of leads into her book, Phantoms in the Night, or ETs, My Lifelong Experience of Contact with the Paranormal. Please welcome Lorraine McAdam to the show. Welcome!
Thank you. Hello, everybody.
All right, so let's kind of get into some of these questions here on what makes you believe that you've been having encounters with UFOs, extraterrestrials, or the paranormal since you were a child?
Well, the first thing that happened really, that at first I didn't really realise it was ETs, or I didn't even connect it with ETs, because it started happening in the sort of late 70s. And what would happen would be that I would become paralysed, and from the neck down. Well, in fact, I just couldn't even move my head. Oh, wow. And I would then black out. And this started happening, I was around the age of 12. And at the time, I was a devout Christian. And I still follow the tenets of Christianity even now. But back then, I kind of only had that kind of interpretation of things. So when I kind of caught a glimpse of what I think was the classic grey face with big black eyes and very pale skin, I remember thinking it must be a demon. So I felt like I was being persecuted by demons at the time when I was a child. And what happened was that I think they tried to show me that that wasn't the case, even though I was really in denial and I had no clue what was going on. And they drew some black like sort of hieroglyphic symbols on my nightdress one night. Oh, wow. And they paralysed me while they were doing it, and I could feel it being done. And I thought, what on earth are they doing? And then when I came out of the paralysis, out of the blackout later, I took my nightdress off, and I was horrified to see these sort of like hieroglyphic type symbols, and I was so scared at the time, because you have to remember that in the 70s there was hardly anything about this kind of thing. There was no remit to, even if you went to the esoteric section of a bookshop, you would hardly find anything on it. Right. I think the groundbreaking book on it didn't come till the 80s, which was, of course, Whitley Strieber's Communion, which I did later go on to read and realise what happened to me. But, I sort of didn't know what was happening to me at the time, so I didn't connect it with ETs at first. But when I did have an experience, or if you want a flashback of, I felt like I was being taken through the house walls, and I actually had a really vivid dream of this happening, and I could actually see the inside of the wall as I was pulled through it, and I could see spiders' webs inside the wall.
Oh, wow.
And I was pulled up to a craft which was cylindrical, and it was there was like a sort of Air Force blue light coming from the bottom, if you know the blue colour, like a very deep sky blue colour. Oh, wow. And that's all I can remember before I blacked out. But so it did start very early for me, and for years I felt I was just being persecuted by demons until I got hold of Whitley Strieber's book. And then I thought, oh my God, this so sounds like what's happened to me. And it was very frightening because I had to face the fact that it could be ETs that I was interacting with.
Oh, wow. Yeah. And the Greys are known to be kind of the nasty ETs.
Yeah.
I mean,
they're not known for their empathy. Although I always blacked out, and what would happen would be that I'd come to and it would be suddenly daylight, and it would feel like it had only been seconds since it was night time. And I tried to tell my mum about it, but she just wrote it off as I was having a bit of a crazy do, and because of periods and things, and said she was going to take me to see a psychiatrist if I didn't stop it. Because of course, really, how could you blame her for reacting like that? Because we had no recourse to any framework that we could fit this onto. It was horrible, really. And I just spent from 12 to 16 being kind of terrified and trying to live my life. And in the end, I kind of coped with it by compartmentalising it, and just trying to carry on with my normal life. But one thing that did happen was, I don't know whether you read in my book, but I got a sort of, I believe I got an intelligence upgrade with them. I don't know whether that was an experiment or what, but I remember kind of going from being not understanding anything, not understanding maths and science and English, and really struggling at the bottom, to going right to the top of the class. And I remember my family and my teachers just couldn't understand this at all. And it enabled me later to go on to get my 5 GCEs as they were back then, to train to become a nurse, because the mandatory requirement was always maths and English and 3 other GCEs, in the UK anyway at that time. So I don't know why they did it. So.
Yeah. Now, when you had these experiences, did it feel like you had like a loss of time?
Yes, definitely. Because I would go from it being kind of midnight. They used to come early morning. It would be either just past midnight or in the early hours of the morning, when they, for want of a better word. And I used to get this kind of foreboding feeling, for want of a better way of explaining it. I would almost know when they were going to come. I could feel something was going to happen, and that still happens now. And then they would come, sure enough, and I would go from, it would be black, pitch black in my room, because my mum wouldn't let me have any lights on or anything. She was very strict about that. And then it would suddenly be daylight, and I'd wake up and it would be daytime, and it would be sort of early morning, like 6 a.m., something like that. So there was missing time of 3 or 4 hours or 5 hours quite often.
Oh, wow.
I was so frightened that I didn't want to investigate it. I just, I didn't know what it was. I just put it down to demon persecution. And I even talked to a priest about it at the church, and he said that he kind of went with the same explanation. So that wasn't helpful. And told me to look around my room and get rid of any pagan items, which the only thing I could find was a horseshoe on the wall. Smashed. And that made no difference whatsoever. The only thing was I was spearing my feet with shards off it for weeks. Yeah, so...
Now, you did have an experience that happened in front of some staff members, right?
That's right, yes. That was later on when I was a nurse, qualified nurse by then. I was a senior staff nurse in a small private hospice, and I was palliative care nurse at that time. I'd done some extra training. And I was in charge of 8 staff, one other staff nurse with me. The rest were what we call in England auxiliary nurses. I think you call them nursing assistants in the States. So the buzzer went off about 1 a.m. in the morning. And I ran to the top. I said, I'll get it. I was quite willing, I said, I'll get it. So I went in the lift. I got out of the lift, and you had to kind of traverse a bend when you came out of the lift to go towards the patient's private rooms. And I came around that bend. I'll never forget this as long as I live, really. It's circa about 1993. As I came around the bend, right at the bottom of the corridor, the buzzer was going off because the buzzers used to light up above the patient's rooms. The buzzer was going off, but as I was coming, there were 2 what looked like to me, I thought, God, what is this? They were ETs, definitely ETs. They were not human. I could see the taller one, which I took to be male. He had kind of pointy ears. I've done a drawing of him in my book, actually. Like a very large nose, pointy ears, like brown leathery skin. And he wore kind of like like the Indian kurta that men wear of Indian ethnicity. Now the lady, curiously, and I took this to be a female, exactly the same features as him facially, but I couldn't tell about her ears or anything because she was wearing, like they wear a scarf for Indian ethnicity. They wear a scarf, don't they, wrapped around them, and that's how she was dressed, and she was covered a long dress on. And I didn't take all of it in very, I took the mainly the way they looked in. Their eyes were glowing red, which terrified me. So off I ran. I just legged it. Well, wouldn't you just leg it? These people that say to me, why didn't you take a photograph, should try being in that moment, is what I always because the last thing you're going to do is take a photograph, I can assure you, because it was so scary. So I ran in a bathroom and locked myself in because I was absolutely terrified. But the strange thing was, I then buzzed for a staff to come, because you can pull the red cord, of course. Disabled people can do that. So that made a nurse come. But the strange thing was, when she arrived, it was the other staff nurse, and she said, where the heck have you been? And I said, well, I've only been here 10 minutes. But she said, no, she said, we've looked on every floor for you. We've looked all over. We couldn't find you. And she said, it's 2 a.m. And she pointed at my fob watch. And I'd lost 50 minutes because to me it had only been 5-10 minutes.
Oh, wow.
So they witnessed that happen. And she said, you've gone pale white. And, of course, I tried to tell her what I'd seen. But she wouldn't believe me. She said, oh, you're probably hallucinating or something. Of course, she didn't know my background. She didn't know that these things had been happening to me since I was a kid. Although they did know I was psychic, because I'd read, I'm a psychometrist, and I'd read quite a few of the rings and watches of the other staff. And she just put it down to I'd seen a ghost. And I said, but it didn't look human. But nobody would listen to me, it was very scary. And, I found that very frightening, and it made me think that they can come for you anywhere, anytime, because I just assumed they come for you at night when you're sleeping, but it made me realise that they can come anytime, and I was on nights at that time. I wasn't doing 4 nights a week, and I wonder if there was some kind of, I know it sounds funny, but some kind of schedule or something, and they had to come for me. So I would love to be regressed, to be taken back now. I feel ready to think about being regressed, to try and recover some of these lost memories this in time. There's so much of it in my story.
Absolutely. Now, there was another one where you've actually seen some crafts or UAPs or anything like that.
Oh, yes. Yeah. The first craft I ever saw was when I was in my second year of nurse training, and we saw a glowing red ball in the sky above the fields behind the hospital. And I had an Irish nurse with me. She was a nursing assistant, as you call it. And she pointed at it too, and she actually drew my attention to it, and we both watched it until it kind of just faded out. But in more recent times, in 2008, it was very hot, and it was August time, and I left my bedroom curtains open. I have quite a big bedroom window, and at that time there were no buildings in front of my house. They've since built an estate, but there was nothing there then. And in the far field, just off what we call the B6263 road, in where I live, I saw a huge cylindrical shaped craft, and it was almost like they were showing off, because it hovered above the field, and then it kind of went on its side and rolled like a wheel, as if to say, look what we can do.
Oh, wow.
And it had kind of green and orange lights around the outside of it. And prior to seeing this, I had seen some kind of white lights that zigzagged apart and came back together again. And I've been fascinated with that. I'm thinking, what the heck's that?
Oh, yeah.
And at first I thought, are kids messing about with lasers or something? You think of all kind of reasonable explanations to try and explain things away. But they were high above the field. And I thought, how could kids get them up there, and how could they get them to go so fast and to so accurately come back together into one big white light and then move apart again? And I said to my husband, I'm going to investigate if this happens again. I said, so after I saw the cylindrical craft, I thought, right, that's me, I'm off. I'm going to investigate this. I'm fed up, I want to know what's going on. So off I went in my little Fiat, as it was at that time. And I got to the edge of the field, and as I was coming towards the edge of that field, there was like an egg-shaped craft, and I could see it was lit up like a sort of pearlescent colour in the dark, and on either side in silhouette were what I took to be two male, and I felt like they were guards or something, stood on either side, and I could just see there was a kind of door open, and it was almost like they were sat there waiting for me.
Oh, wow.
I can't put it anyway. And I was terrified, because at that time I had two young children. They've grown up now, but at the time they were 8 and 12. And I thought, the first thing that entered my head was, what if they take me and don't bring me back? I was thinking all sorts of things. So off I went in a right flapper, an absolute panic. I was terrified, towards the M6 exit, 42 exit, heading south, from Scotland. So then I got onto the M6. I was in a real panic. I was in a real state because of what I witnessed. And the funny thing was, all I could think to do was pull off at what I thought was a service station. Now, I managed to pull off at the service station, which is called Southwaite. But when I pulled off there, it was curiously, there was no one around, which in and of itself was strange. And there was, the only thing I could see was a white lorry, a plain white lorry, no logos on it, no nothing. And the driver was kind of leaning, or appeared to be leaning out of his truck. And I immediately got out of my car and said, I was in a right flap. I said, can you get me back heading north? I had no idea how to turn back north at that point, because I'd hardly driven on the motorway. I'd only passed my test later in life, and I was kind of a nervous driver anyway, so I was terrified. And he indicated, he didn't speak, he just indicated follow me. Seemed to get back in, but the strange thing was, I think that wasn't what it appeared to be, because I followed it, and all I could see when I followed him, it was night time. You would expect it to be lit up, wouldn't you? A lorry should be lit up at night. You would expect to see the tyres in a small Fiat that's close to the ground. I didn't see his back tyres. All I saw in front of me was a white wall.
Wow. And
then suddenly I felt my car plop down, almost like I'd been put back down onto the motorway, heading the right way, heading back towards Scotland. And gosh. I've not been regressed, but I would love to be regressed about this.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Now, do you feel like you have been aboard a spacecraft?
Yes, but because I think that was, I'm convinced that what they did, that they realised that they'd frightened me to death. And for whatever reason, because I had contacts with the Nordics in the past. I think it was the Nordic ETs. And I think they'd been kind enough, for want of a better way of putting it, to take me off the motorway, turn me around, knowing, because another significant thing is that when I went back to look at the services, there's no way you can turn around there. You cannot turn around there. It's barred off, it's blocked off. The only way you can turn around is by going up to the next exit 43, J43, and you can turn around there. And the funny thing was, I felt like I was going over a bridge, but there's no bridge there. There's only a passenger bridge that you can't go take a car across it. It's just for walking. So that is so weird.
Yeah,
it's just
that's bizarre.
weird.
Yeah, very bizarre.
Yeah.
Now, you're still having some experiences, right?
Yes, I had one only yesterday, actually.
Oh my gosh, wow.
Yeah. My son and me went to Awakening Expo on the last weekend. I don't know whether you've heard of that, in Manchester. And he was kind of moaning on at me, and he was saying, "Mum, why do they never come to me? Why do they come to you? Why do you see things? Why do I never see things?" And I said, "I really have no idea." And the funny thing was, you'll probably laugh at this because the irony of it is not lost on me, but we went up a big mountain yesterday in the lakes, and we got to the top, and we're all really pleased we'd conquered this particular mountain. It was a Wainwright. And we were coming down, and I said, "Well, I don't know why they don't bother with you." I said, "Don't moan at me." I said, "I don't know what it is." I said, "Maybe I'm wired a certain way or something." And then I got a little bit cross with him and carried on in front because he was moaning so much because he's a teenager. And then as I was coming over a hill and he'd got behind me, this man came towards me, very, very tall man, 6'5". I would say at least, had very piercing blue eyes. He was wearing blue all over, blue T-shirt, blue bottoms, like a sort of Air Force blue. He turned to me and smiled at me, and we made eye contact. We didn't say anything, we just nodded at each other. And I carried, and my son caught me up later on at the bottom of the hill. And I said, "Did you see that man? Did you see that man? Did you say hello to it?" "What man? What man are you talking about, Mum?"
Oh my
"What
gosh.
man?"
Wow.
And we'd been talking about the Pleiadians at the time. And this is what happens to me. And I said to him, "What, you didn't see him? Are you blind or something?" "Mum, there was nobody there." He said, "I followed you the whole way. There was nobody went past me." And that man would have had to pass him, of course, because he was behind me. And this is what these things happened to me. When we were in lockdown, when lockdown first hit with the COVID virus, I was told that I would be helped through that. And the funny thing was, although I'm married to a doctor that was on the front line of, he was in A&E, and he was meeting it when people were actually still dying with it and treating them for breathing problems. You can imagine how quickly he could bring that home to his family. But I was told that I would be protected through it, telepathically told that I would be protected through it. I'm sorry, I'm just glancing at my notes here as well. If you don't. And the funny thing was that, sorry, I'm just trying to find the right notes.
You're okay.
You talked about this. Right, yeah, so they're here. And what I saw in my room is I woke up one night and I saw what appeared to be a Nordic male in silhouette. This was around the time of lockdown. And I write all about it in my book. But I woke up and he seemed to be doing something with my phone, but I don't know what he was doing. And when he saw I caught him, he put the phone down, which is always on my locker side when I'm in bed. And he vanished as I reached to put the light on because he frightened me so much. But from what I saw of him, he had sort of shoulder length hair, and he was wearing, again, like the Curta style. They seem to wear like something that's belted in the middle, and it's like a Curta style thing over trousers. It seemed to be a dark colour. And then later on, when I kept feeling this presence, I pointed my camera into nothing, into the darkness of my room, and I caught this figure on camera, and I have that. I tried to put that in my book, but it was so dark it wouldn't come out, so I had it removed. But I can send it to you after.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And what I caught was this very tall man, and you can mainly see his face. But I sent it to a ufologist, and he said that he seemed to have goggles on and some kind of protective thing on his nose and mouth, which kind of makes sense in a way. But I think they have invisibility technology that they can hide in plain sight, because I definitely caught something you'll see when I send you this photograph.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I've since tried to edit it to lighten it up. If anybody knows of anybody that would be willing to, is clever with that sort of thing and could perhaps get more out of it.
Oh, yeah, sure.
I would love someone to, I'd be quite happy to let someone do that, because to me he looks like a Nordic, though. He looks blonde. Even the little bit of light I can see of his face. And he is so tall that my dressing table mirror is off to one side of him, and he must have been at least 7 feet tall.
Oh, wow.
You can see of him. So I caught this around the same time that this happened, where I caught he was faffing with my phone. But they told me I would have to have a necessary medical procedure. And not long after that, I did, and I posted a photo in my book of that. I came back from what I believe was an abduction with a triangular mark on my arm. And for all the 2 years that COVID was at its most dangerous, I never caught it. Never caught it, in spite of the fact that I had a husband who was on the front line treating people that were dying with it. Then suddenly, after it became less dangerous and it mutated into a less dangerous form, I did get it. But 2 years and I went out shopping. Although I wear a mask, but I went out shopping. I mixed with a lot of people. I carried on teaching over Skype and that sort of thing. Still, I didn't get it. So it makes me wonder if they gave me some kind of protection. I don't know.
Right.
This is why I say I would love to be regressed. I'm actually in talks with someone, a British person, about being regressed.
Oh, yeah.
To try and get back.
That would
some
be
of the
interesting to hear, yeah.
Yes, yeah. Could maybe even be a second book. Because,
for sure.
Because I don't know what I'm going to recall. And you said about being taken on board a ship. I have had, there was one particular one which I talk about in my book, where I was allowed to feel what was happening to me at the beginning of the abduction. And I was being held from behind very tightly. I was paralysed as usual. I couldn't really move. But we whizzed down this long what appeared to be a tunnel, and we were floating. We weren't on the ground, we were floating. And we whizzed down and we went to the end of this tunnel. And right at the end, the sky was a sort of very pale grey colour. And see a white city, and I could right in front of me, I could see behind what I took to be a temple for some reason. I don't know how I knew it was a temple, but I feel I could see some kind of, I was getting spiritual vibes off this building anyway, and I could see this temple, but behind, and I wanted to go further, but I wasn't allowed. I was pulled right back, and back down we came down this white tunnel, and then I came to in bed.
Oh, wow.
And it was just, and I'll never forget that. It was amazing. And I feel like that was maybe benevolent. It was one of the Nordics trying to show me something of theirs. I don't know. And it's strange, but I've since kind of read about the Nordic ETs having a base where there is a white tunnel. One of the, on Ceres, I think it was on Ceres, and they have an underground base with a white tunnel going into it. So that made me think, oh my God, is that just a synchronicity?
Oh, wow.
Or have I been taken to see something? It just made me wonder. So.
Wow. Now, what are some of the long-term effects of this on you?
Well, at first, when I was, obviously, can you imagine when I was 12 and it was all very strange and I didn't understand it. And then by the time I got hold of a copy of Communion, when I read about the Greys, the first thing that struck me was the face on the front. I've got a copy of it here, I'll just show you. I saw this in a bookshop. And it terrified me at first, because I just thought, I don't want I know that face is what I thought. That was my first thought that went through my head. And then after, when I read the book, I read it twice all the way through without kind of stopping, or pause it. And it took me a long time. It took me quite a while to come to terms with the fact that I'd been interacting with something otherworldly, probably with somebody from another planet, and I got a kind of form of PTSD. I had to be treated for depression. I took a bit of time off work at the time because I was shocked by it all. And eventually, I think I did come to terms with it. And it was only later on, the early encounters I had with what I'll call Nordic people, the Nordic ETs, I'd written off as angels, which is, again, seeing it through a Western, traditional Western world view, isn't it? But now, as I've gone on and there's more research come out and it's gathered a pace, I realise now that probably I've had interactions with the Nordic ETs quite a lot as well. So, but I kind of made peace with it now. And for a long time, I didn't want to talk about it because every time I tried to talk about it, I just got withering looks, or somebody had hummed the Twilight Zone tune at me, or, and even my own family wouldn't believe. They thought she's just imagining things, and my mum dismissed it as that to the day she died. And, even my husband wouldn't believe me at first until he actually saw me go missing in front of him, which happened to me in 2016 when we went to see, now this is the ironic thing, is it a synchronicity? We'd gone to see I Want to Believe, the X-Files film. And I'd come out of there, and normally when you come out, everyone heads to the loo. Now, this was a strange thing. There was nobody in the loo when I went. I know it sounds really strange. I said, I want to be 5 minutes. And to me, that is all the time I took. But as I went in, one of the light bulbs popped above my head and exploded.
Oh, my gosh.
And I thought, I better report that when I come out of here. And I had every intention of doing that. But then as I went out, my husband and sons were stood looking at me and pointing at the watches, giving me angry looks. I thought, what have I done now? I've only been 5 minutes.
Yeah.
You've been in there half an hour. You've been in there an hour. That's what I got.
Oh, my gosh.
What have you been doing in there?
Oh, wow.
And my husband didn't believe it until that happened. And also we saw crop formations before I saw the craft in the field that I talked about earlier. That started with crop formations forming in that field, and they were in the shape of the swastika and letter H. And my husband had to concede, because he's got a very scientific mind, that they could only have come from the air because there were no footprints apart from his.
Oh, wow.
So he since believes me and he supports me now, but he's never seen anything, heard anything. It all seems to happen around me, And my son was so cross yesterday. It was funny to behold, because I said, well, you'd just been saying, hadn't you, that they don't bother with you. And, of course, that I think I've just seen another one. I know it sounds strange, doesn't it? But I thought I'll bring that in, because... Right. These things just seem to happen, and there's no warning. They just happen, and you only realise after something weird's happened, because, like he said, no, I didn't see anyone, Mum, and I was following you all the time, So truly. I don't know why these things happen to me, but I have made peace with it now. I've just thought, well, maybe they chose me because I'm wired in some way. It could be my DNA. I've even wondered that. Is there a connection? Because a lot of ancient Earth civilizations, I'm finding as I read more and more, and I was listening to Billy Carson at the Awakening Expo, and he talks about the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. I don't know whether you've heard of his latest book.
I have not. No, I have not heard of that one.
Well, apparently Thoth ruled Egypt for 18,000 years. So I think they were more long-lived than us. And I've actually read that the Nordics can live up to 1,000 years or more. You know, I don't know whether that's true. I've never sort of met one to ask them. Not with
Right.
me initiating the meeting. I mean, I've met them and then realised it's them.
Right.
Like, you know, but
Yeah.
not. I'd love to know more. But apparently Thoth ruled, and he was a very wise king. He wasn't a bad king. He was a good king. So I'm itching to get my hands on that, actually. But when
Right.
you look at ancient civilizations, you do realise that we have been visited for thousands of years.
Oh, for
You know,
sure. They have hieroglyphics and things in there. I mean, in the pyramids, they have drawings and
yes.
things of what look like spaceships and extraterrestrials. So,
Oh, yes, absolutely. I've seen that. Yeah, I mean, I just think that there's far more to it than meets the eye. Sorry, I was just looking. And also, when we went through a very bad period, circa about 10,500 years ago, there are myths in all the tribes of the earth about these ETs coming from the sky to earth to teach us and to help us reset civilization, because civilization was devastated by floods right across the whole of the earth. And you can find legends of that in all the tribes on earth, including the Celtic tribes, of course, that, you know, I come from on my father's side. And it's absolutely amazing that they all carry similar myths of people coming from the sky, these pale, what they call the moon-eyed people, looked into this for Ireland. And they couldn't hunt during the day. They had to hunt at night because they couldn't stand our sun.
oh,
It was their eyes couldn't stand our sun. So they didn't come from Earth. The Tuatha and Anne, I don't know whether you've heard of that, of them.
No.
They had red hair, pale, very pale skin, and blue people. And my dad is just like that. He's red haired with blue eyes and pale skin. I'm take after my mum's side. But my dad is definitely fits that,
Oh, wow.
you know. Yeah. So I wonder sometimes, is it my DNA? Is there a connection? Or are they trying to contact their own even people? Did we have a breakaway civilization in the past? Were we more advanced and we broke away? Some of us, you know, became more advanced in a breakaway civilization. So are they coming back to find family? I've often wondered. I just don't know. I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah, I mean, it could be. You know, I have not had an experience with an ET or anything that I'm aware of. You know, but I mean, maybe there is some kind of connection, or they feel like maybe there's a purpose for you. You know, you're telling your story now, getting the information out. Maybe there's something along those lines that they're trying to tell you to kind of help pass that information along too. So.
Yeah, I was kind of pushed into that, I think, really, because I never wanted to talk about it for years and years. I thought I'd be labelled as an idiot, a lunatic, you know, all the other things, cliches that people kind of label you with. And then I decided, after this, I feel like I was pushed after all this series of events, recent events, you know, around the time of lockdown. I felt like they were saying, you have to tell your story, you have to get it out there, because this earth is going through a sea change, and people are going to have to realise that we're not alone in the universe. That consciousness is coming up, I feel, and the ETs are trying to make their presence known.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Create a kind of disclosure by default, if you will, you know, even though it's been hidden, hasn't it, for 70 years now.
Right.
And, you know, people like David Grush are coming out and saying, we've got proof, we've made contact with ET, but it's been hidden. I don't know what you think about that, but I think that's going to be a real shock to a lot of people on this planet.
Yeah.
You know, once it comes out.
Right.
So maybe you've hit the nail on the head there. Maybe they're contacting certain people to get this out. I don't know.
I mean, that's my thought. I mean, I could be totally off, but it seems like there's something that they feel like you are, you know, are able to do that. And now there's more and more people that are coming out, you know, in the last couple of years with their stories on this, because they've been afraid to discuss it. But now, you know, with the paranormal and everything like that, I think it's more susceptible, like more people are accepting of this now than they would have been maybe 10, 20 years ago.
Oh, absolutely, because there's more out there about it. You've got the Pentagon releasing the Navy pilots engaging with the tic-tac craft. And incidentally, when I had an experience where I was taken from my house in 1995 during a blackout that I feel they caused, actually. I was taken then, and I remember right at the beginning of that abduction, the ceiling kind of, I don't know how they do this, the ceiling seemed to just vanish, and I could see a hangar with lots of actual tic-tac shaped craft parked in this hangar, and they were shiny black, but they were parked, they weren't moving. And I remember seeing that as long as I live and breathe, you know. So when I saw that about the tic-tac craft engaging with the USA's Navy pilots, I thought, my God, wow, it just resonated right away, and I thought that is amazing to see that, because I've seen them parked up, and I think they belong to the Nordic ETs. I'll lay money on that. Because the one that came for me he looked like a Nordic ET, even though he was wearing a tight-fitting diver's type suit, and I couldn't see a lot, but I could see his eyes, and they were really deep blue. So,
wow, that's truly amazing. Now, with your book, Phantoms in the Night, or ETs, if people want to purchase your book, it's now called Collective Ink. Is that correct?
Yes, and it's on Amazon USA as well. If they just put Lorraine McAdam into the search engine of Amazon USA or Amazon UK, it will come up there. It's Lorraine, LORRAINE, and M small c capital ADAM.
And
so
now, do you have social media? So if people want to see if you're up to making it, or if you decide to do another book, or if you're at do you do any public speaking events or anything like that in that area that people, or if they have questions, they can get in contact with you?
Yes, in my book itself, there's my email. So they can email me. If they buy the book, they'll see at the back that I've left my email there. So they're quite welcome to get in touch with me and ask questions. Also, I have a page for my book on Facebook. Do you want me to send you the link to it after this?
Yes, absolutely. That would be perfect. Yeah.
I can send you all the links if you like.
Yes.
Would that be okay? And could you put those out?
Yeah. We'll put them on our social media as well. Yeah.
Well, thank you. So you can get it to Collective Ink. It's 6 books as well. Who actually published it. So I'm not. I think because it's only just come out, I've not been invited to speak anywhere yet. But I suspect I might be eventually. I have a feeling in my water.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. People are going to want to hear your story. And to all of our listeners, please go out and check out and purchase Phantoms in the Night, or ETs, My Life Experience of Contact with Paranormal. And it's truly amazing that you're now out and speaking about your story and everything that has happened to you. So I give you props for doing that. I know it's hard sometimes for people to come out.
It's very hard. Because some of my relatives still think I'm a nutter. I think actually secretly thinking that, because they've never interacted with it or anything. So in some ways I can understand, why you think I'm a nutter, but I can assure you I'm not. I've got 3 degrees. I'm a clever person. I'm not. I'm still working as a teacher part-time as I'm doing all this. So, I'm not a stupid person. I write comedy and things, I don't just write about this. And, I can assure you that there's nothing wrong with me, that would make, I wonder if they pick me because I do enjoy writing. I actually wondered that because I do like writing, I hope that comes across. So, absolutely. I just don't know.
Absolutely. Well, thank
Yeah.
you. Well, thank you,
Thank
Lorraine,
you.
for joining us. And
Thank you. Yeah.
once again, everybody, Phantoms in the Night, or ATs, my lifelong experience of the contact with the paranormal. Check it out on Amazon, Collective Inc. Books. I will have the links available for you guys as well on our social media. And thank you, Lorraine. It was truly amazing to hear your story.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Yes, absolutely. And thank you, everybody, and peace out.